Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My name is Jun Wen. I'm a research botanist and the chair of the Department of Botany at the Smithsonian Institution. Welcome to the 22nd National Botanical Symposium. Many of you may notice that the symposium was known as the Smithsonian Botanical Symposium. At the beginning, the symposium series was organized by the Smithsonian Department of Botany. In the recent years, the symposium has been developed with a strong partnership between Smithsonian Botany, the United States Botanical Garden, and the Smithsonian Gardens. So the strong partnership has also transformed the symposium from one strongly focused on systematics in the past to one like today with a broader perspective and also with a stronger outreach component. The partnership has resulted in this name change this year. This is the first year. It's known as the National Botanical Symposium. And this year, we have brought together 5 distinguished speakers and about 500 participants, both in person and online. I'm very glad to see many of you here, and many are also were familiar with as well. Yeah. So together we will explore the future of collection-based plant science. We'll brainstorm on the strategies to advance our science at this very critical moment of beyond biodiversity and the climate crisis. And we'll discuss how we can better connect with the public, the decision makers, and the policymakers on the importance and the relevance of collections and plants. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our Dr. Rebecca Johnson, C.W. Whitley Associate Director for Science and Chief Scientist of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, to deliver welcome remarks. Rebecca? Yeah.
Thank you so much, June. This is one of my favorite events of the year. So good afternoon. As June said, my name is Rebecca Johnson and I am the C.W. Whitney Chief Scientist here at the National Museum of Natural History. And on behalf of the entire museum, it is a pleasure to have you all here today. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you who are joining us virtually. That's been a real success, the ability to do both forms of communication, because it allows so many other people to participate in this fantastic forum. So this is the 22nd National Botanical Symposium. I know that we've had a name change this year, but I'm curious, how many people have you been to all 22? So, I knew it would be more than, I knew it would be a critical mass of people. So you all have seen extraordinary science presented now for several decades, and there is nothing different about today. And it is also our pleasure to continue to collaborate with really important partners. Of course, the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History's Department of Botany, ably led by Dr. Jun Wen and Dr. Eric Schutpelz. The United States Botanic Garden and Susan Pell, huge welcome and thank you for your collaboration, and we're going to hear from her in a minute. And of course, Smithsonian Gardens. It is wonderful to have your partnership, and I know that Joy Columbus can't be with us today, but she is ably represented by many members of Smithsonian Gardens as well. So as part of my role as Chief Scientist, I have the honour of overseeing the world's largest natural history collection, and a lot of it is right here in this building, and of course the nation's herbarium and the incredibly talented team that work and study there. And I know that they're all well known to you, and they do an incredible job of managing this collection, doing fantastic research on this collection, and communicating why it's important. And that is very fitting for today's theme, which is the future of collections-based plant science. And personally, I don't think we could have a more timely topic and a more timely discussion right here in our museum. Just this reminds me of how the collection at the Smithsonian Museum was founded. So we were founded, actually the collection that basically inspired the Smithsonian was probably the US exploring expedition, which happened in the 1830s before the Smithsonian was established. And it was very much around discovery and particularly focused on discovering the exotic lands of the South that the British had done a fairly good job of cruising around and colonizing. So the United States decided that they also wanted to get into the expedition game, less with the concept of colonizing, but more with the concept of commerce. So what was out there that was exotic and interesting in these new lands? And in that initial exploring expedition that went all around the Cape Horn of Africa, it went up to Antarctica, it went down to Antarctica, it went through Australia and the Pacific, it went through South America. They collected tens of thousands of plant specimens that are actually part of the foundation of the collection that we have here today. And so while those discovery days are probably a little different than they are today, we have spent the last 5 years going on a digital expedition of that collection. And here at the US National Herbarium, we hold a treasure trove of data among the 5 million plant specimens that we alone hold. And I know collectively in this room, it would be much, much more, and effectively a documentation of what we have in biodiversity in the botanical world. Right here in this museum, we have 115,000 type specimens as part of those 15 million plant specimens. And after a 7-year effort, we are proud to say that our pressed plants are fully digitized. And this resulted in 3.8 million new specimen images, 2.8 million new label transcriptions, and over 80,000 taxonomic names added to the data catalogue, which we are so proud of our team to be able to contribute that to the world scientific community. And I don't think I need to explain to you that having this as a digital resource in addition to the physical collection is incredibly valuable so that anyone around the world can access it online. And this now we think benefits even more people than before. Of course, our researchers in taxonomy, systematics, evolution, physiology, ecology, environmental science, conservation biology and agriculture, but hopefully many more people that never thought about the benefits and the wonderful things that can come from a museum collection. And the data derived from these collections leads to important new discoveries, things that are completely relevant to the topics that we're talking about today and critical for conservation biologists, for example, because they give critical insight into how these species have changed over time, where they are or are not anymore, and also just some very interesting insights into how they have evolved. In fact, just this month, a research paper that was co-authored by our very own Gary Krupnik from the Department of Botany and scientist emeritus John Kress looked at nearly 10,000 herbarium specimens for the genus Heliconia, and unfortunately found that 87 species, or approximately half the genus, are now classified as threatened with extinction. You just couldn't get that kind of deep information and impactful outcome without the longitudinal data and the breadth of data that we have in collections like ours and like many of yours in the room. So today it is a delight that we're going to hear about some of the innovative work that can now be done with these kind of digital expeditions that we're able to take into our own collections. A really exciting work that is being done trialing artificial intelligence and the training of large language models now that we have these large longitudinal data sets, and what we can do with that information and the kind of questions that we can ask it that we couldn't have dreamed of, or we would have to have done one question or one person at a time. So thank you all so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the rich conversations and contributions that will be made throughout the day. And as you gather today to think about the future of collections and plant-based science, I hope you'll all be inspired to think creatively about how our collections and your collections, both digital and physically in herbarium and botanical gardens, can connect to people and communities and collectively help us protect this incredible land that we live on. So thank you so much, and it is now my pleasure to hand back to Jun Wen.
Thanks so much, Rebecca, for your leadership, your support, and your vision about the collections. And now I think I'm going to, and all the interesting facts about the United States National Herbarium. And now I would like to invite Dr. Susan Pell, the Executive Director of the United States Botanical Garden, to say a few words about her garden.
Hi, welcome everyone. So excited to see you all here today, both in person and online. And I love that Rebecca mentioned the U.S. Exploring Expedition because today we have many rich collaborations with the Smithsonian, but we really are connected through that Exploring Expedition, which started not only the collections of Smithsonian, but also of the United States Botanic Garden. And if you're in town and you're coming to the reception tonight, you can see 4 species that were collected on that expedition that we have still in our collection today. And those specimens date to that expedition, which returned to the United States in 1842. So both of our organizations are really rooted in the original collections that were made by the U.S. government on that expedition. So it's a wonderful connection that our 2 institutions have. So U.S. Botanic Garden is the oldest continuously operating public garden in the United States. We were established by Congress in 1820. We're still part of Congress today. And we've been continuously open since 1850 when our original conservatory opened to display those plants that were brought back on the U.S. Exploring Expedition. We are both an accredited museum and an accredited botanic garden, and our living collection is really the core of those accreditations. It really allows us to function on a scientific level with our living collections. We care for over 45,000 plants, and about 10,000 of those are in our accessioned collection, with which we really pay very, very close attention to the provenance of those plants, where we got them, when they came into the collection, other information about them. And we collaborate with scientists around the United States and across the world, really, to learn more about those collections and to use our collection for scientific purposes, not just to know about the species, but also to advance conservation globally. We offer many, many, many online programs and in-person programs at the Botanic Garden. The online programs are all free to the public, and most of our in-person programs are as well. And we have had the pleasure of having served people in every state across the country and many dozens of countries around the world with those online programs. And as I mentioned, we have scientific collaborations. I won't talk about them in detail, but here's just a few examples of some of those collaborations. And I'll mention one. The Global Genome Initiative is actually another connection that we have with Smithsonian, and that it was a program that was started here, and there was an idea from somebody in the botany department to create a gardens version of GGI. And this essentially is aiming to collect germplasm material, so leaf material primarily from living collections at gardens and arboreta across the country and around the world, to preserve those for future scientific study. And we are lucky to continue collaborating with them and offering some awards for mostly international gardens, but some gardens across the country as well, to preserve their collections in that way for scientific use. I'm very excited about the topic today, and I have the pleasure of leading the panel discussion at the end of the symposium. So please have your questions ready for the speakers. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Susan. We're important partners on the move. Yeah. So now I would like to invite Botany Curator Dr. Laurence Dorr to present our 22nd José Cuatrecasas Medal for Excellence in Tropical Botany.
Thank you, June. The Department of Botany and the U.S. National Herbarium present the José Cuatrecasas Medal for Excellence in Tropical botany to a scholar of international stature who has contributed significantly to advancing the field of tropical botany. The medal is named in honor of José Cuatrecasas, a botanist and taxonomist who spent nearly a half-century working in the Smithsonian Institution's Department of Botany. He devoted his career to plant exploration in tropical South America, and this award is meant to serve to keep vibrant the accomplishments in memory of this outstanding scientist. Lynn G. Clark is the 2025 Cuatrecasas Medal recipient. She is a professor in the Department of Ecology, Evolution, and Organismal Biology, and the director of the Ada Hayden Herbarium, both at the Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. More importantly, she's the world's expert on neotropical woody bamboos and has conducted extensive field work in Latin America. Ironically, she's more familiar than most medal recipients with the U.S. National Herbarium because as a local high school student in Alexandria, Virginia, she volunteered during her summer breaks with the late Dr. Thomas Soderstrom, a curator, and Cleo Calderon, his collaborator, both of whom were bamboo experts and worked on various bamboo collections and projects. I believe Lynn was 16 in 1972 when she began volunteering. It was the result of a serendipitous intersection of her interest in plants and her father's becoming acquainted with various curators in our department, including Eddie Ayensu, Bill Stern, and I presume Jose himself. Following advice from Tom Soderstrom, Lynn went to Michigan State University in East Lansing, where she received a bachelor's in botany and horticulture. Undoubtedly, she took classes there with the late Dr. John Beeman, who was the 2003 recipient of this medal. Lynn then earned a PhD from Iowa State University, where she studied with the late Dr. Richard W. Pohl, also a specialist in tropical woody bamboos. Lynn's doctoral dissertation was a monograph of a section of the neotropical bamboo genus Chusquea, a genus that includes 200 species found in Mexico, Central America, the West Indies, and South America. She joined the faculty of Iowa State University in 1987 on a temporary appointment, which metamorphosed into a permanent one, and Lynn has spent the entirety of her very productive professional career there. In addition to monographs, Lynn has published over 120 new species of grass with many Latin American colleagues and phylogenies that have contributed to a better understanding of bamboo evolution. She also is co-author of the book American Bamboos, which was published by the Smithsonian Institution Press. Lynn is the recipient of numerous teaching and service awards from Iowa State University and is richly deserving of wider recognition for her contributions to tropical botany. It is therefore with great pleasure that we present her with this medal, and I invite Lynn to come up and say a few words. Well deserved.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Larry. Yes, this is a really unexpected and amazing honor. I had the privilege of knowing Don Jose for about the last 20 years or so of his time here, and he was an amazing scholar and an amazing gentleman as well, and was a great mentor to so many people. Larry's given you some of my history, but what I'd like to do, the connection, in fact, was my father knowing many of the botanists here, especially Tom Soderstrom, but my parents are here today, stand up, with my sister. This would not have been possible without them for many reasons. And I'll also say they just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. So thank you so much. I think my story, as you heard, is all about collections. They are so important in so many ways, and I really look forward to hearing all about ideas and discussions, but we really These are not the greatest days for science, as many of you know, but we have to continue to speak up for our collections and our research and for biodiversity. And it's how we get our people trained too. So the people part is extremely important, and I'm looking forward to hearing all the discussion and ideas today about how we can move this all forward. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Lynn. And so today we are honored to have 5 distinguished speakers with us, and we look forward to the messaging from all of them. At the end of the last talk, we'll also have a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Susan Pell. And a little logistics about for the colleagues online. So if you have questions, you may use the Q&A, and also, if necessary, you may also use the live closed captioning. And in the evening after the symposium in the auditorium, from 6 to 8, we're going to have the poster session and the reception at the U.S. Botanic Garden, which is also on the mall. So it's about a 20 minutes walk. But the one thing I want to remind everyone is you need to pick up your name tag, because they are not going to be available there. We needed the name tag to access the U.S. Botanic Garden. And a few acknowledgements. The symposium has been sponsored by the United States Botanic Garden, the Smithsonian Department of Botany, Smithsonian Gardens, as well as the Smithsonian Botanic Quadricasas Fund. And the symposium has been logistically supported by many colleagues from our partners from the 3 institutions. And I especially want to thank Dr. Gary Kroplick, who has constantly worked very hard over the last few months to make sure every detail of the symposium has been arranged properly. Yeah. And also I want to thank the colleagues in the organizing committee for their services and ideas in planning this symposium.